Hello, everybody. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Paula Guthrie from Creating Purpose with Pau, and I welcome you to the Spanglish World Network and H.E.R Network on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores. While you download it, please make sure that you rate it, you leave a feed, give us your feedback because we want to hear from you. You can find Zingo TV. The app is totally free, and you can find it on Google Chromecast, on Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs from 2016 forward. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited. I am so glad that technology is working for us today. So let me welcome you, like a legend, Nerissa Trinidad. She is the co-author of this beautiful book called A Different Reality. And she's going to be talking to us about what it's like being, a caregiver. So thank you for being here. And I welcome you. I'm so happy.
Hey, Paula, and to everyone listening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from the world today. Welcome. It is such a pleasure to be here, Paula, to chat with you and with your community as well. So thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Please share, about you so our audience, get to know you more.
Sure. So I'm Nerissa Trindade. For those that don't know me, I'm a speaker, coach, and author. I work with individuals and companies doing keynotes, programs, and basically helping people step into the next best version of themselves. But aside from that, I'm also a full-time carer for my wife who lives with mental health and physical health disabilities. And today in this conversation with Paola, we're going to be diving deeper into what it really means about caring for someone that you live with, someone that may be diagnosed or might not be diagnosed, but is living with a mental health condition. And as Paola mentioned, I had the pleasure of co-authoring this book, A Different Reality, with Charlie, my wife. And I look forward to speaking with you and answering really anything that you want to know and take you behind the black curtain on mental health, because I feel it's such an important topic right now. And with everything that's happened over the last 2 years with the pandemic, it's kind of lifted the lid for a lot of people, and it's brought mental health to the forefront of the conversation. And it's really important that we're having this conversation now. So I invite both Paola and anyone listening to ask questions and be part of the conversation. And really, there's no questions that are off limits. So yeah, happy to chat with you all today.
Thank you. And this is what her looks like. It's a book that it helped me, even going through some emotional situation. I was like, oh, I use some of her strategies. So I recommend it to everyone. So let's begin. Tell us what it's like to be a mental health provider for Charlie.
Yeah, thank you. And look, this is a great place to start, I guess, the conversation, because a lot of times when we think about caring, we don't often choose that role. Like if we're a professional caregiver, then yes, we choose the role to be a carer. But sometimes in life, we can find ourselves in the role of being a carer by virtue of our nature to the relationship of the person that we're caring for, whether that is a partner, whether that is parents, whether that is your kids, whether it is friends, someone in the community. Depending on our relationship with that person, we can sometimes find ourselves in the role of a carer. And I think it's important also to understand that when we find ourselves in that role, it can be a bit confronting because not everybody knows a lot about mental health. Like we said, it's not something that we speak about a lot. The conversation is changing. But for example, where I come from in India, I grew up in India in a city called Calcutta, and mental health really wasn't discussed a lot. And it could be for a lot of people listening, even cultural. Like culturally, traditionally, mental health isn't discussed because there's often no terminology or words to use to describe it. And it's often seen as something like we just need to get up and get on and get through. Just do the best you can and move through it. So when I first found myself in that role of a carer, it was honestly really confronting for me because I didn't know how to approach the conversation. I didn't know what to ask. I didn't know what was okay to say, what was not okay to say, what might trigger Charlie. It was like, do I go along with this conversation? Do I ask questions? What do I do? How do I approach it? And I think people listening can really relate to that because it can sometimes be a scary conversation to have. But I think it's important that when we're dealing with mental health, that we're open to being part of the conversation, not sitting on the sidelines because we're scared of it, but important to be part of that conversation and to know that when we are caring for someone, it comes with such a range of mixed emotions. And, I can sit here today with you in a place where I can have this conversation and share with you from a place of being on this journey or having been on this journey for like the last 10, 11 years. But I want to step back and take you back to when it first started 11 years ago, because there could be people listening in today in that position where they're having to have that first conversation. And I want to acknowledge and say that it's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel like you don't know. It's okay to feel like you're out of your comfort zone. It's okay to feel angry, to feel frustrated, to sometimes think, why am I in this position? I didn't ask for it. I didn't choose it, but I'm here. And I think, like a lot of things in life, we can find ourselves in positions like that, in situations like that. And it's really good at those times to understand where we're at and acknowledge the feelings that are coming up for us, acknowledge what we're dealing with, what we're going through, and then share about that as well. Because it's important that the carer also gets to share what they're experiencing whilst taking care of someone else.
That's beautiful. Yes, that open communication. You talk about it. You both talk about it on the book that uh, she gets to tell you how she feels in the moments of fear, in the moments that she cannot be her at her best, in her mental health, and then you get to share how you felt, how it was for you. So whenever things are okay, when she comes back home, then you guys talk about it. So that's beautiful how like having a clear communication, and it's essential, clear communication. Uh, so here is one of the big questions. All of them are big, but this is one of the first one is like, what
We'll
would
get
you
there one
tell
by one.
yes, what would you tell someone right now who is dealing with a mix of emotions, like you were saying, like they're frustrated, there is fear, there is uncertainty because their life has just changed. They feel lonely because they don't know who to talk to about it, because their life just changed. Now they automatically have become a care provider for a loved one. What could you tell them right now?
Yeah, great question. Look, I think I would say to them that it's important to acknowledge what you're feeling. Because a lot of times as a carer, we can feel like we have to support the person we're caring for. Therefore, we have to put all our feelings aside. Therefore, like we are the ones that are responsible for the person that we're caring for. Therefore, we shouldn't feel angry. We shouldn't feel frustrated. We don't allow ourselves to process those emotions. And it's so important that when you are somebody that is caring for someone, that you allow yourself to be cared for too. And part of that is acknowledging the emotions that come with it. Part of it is acknowledging that we might not always get it right. And there is a level of frustration that comes from the situation we find ourselves in. But there's also a level of frustration that comes from how we seem like we think we should behave. And then we're unable to perform at that level because it's only human. Like just because you are caring for someone doesn't automatically make you superhuman. At the end of the day, we all have our own frustration, our own emotions, our own feelings, our own fear that we're dealing with. And the first thing I would say to anyone dealing with those emotions is to acknowledge it, to put a name to it, and know that it's okay to feel those things, that it's okay to not be okay. And once you've established that or acknowledged that feeling, then it's okay to share it. It's okay to go out and say, hey, by the way, I'm not dealing with this okay. I need some help. Whether you're the person struggling with mental health, and this could come up, even for people that aren't diagnosed, There's so much that we're dealing with at the moment, so much uncertainty that we're dealing with in the world around us, that it impacts our mental health. It impacts how we cope day to day, how we function day to day. And sometimes society puts pressure on us to not say that, to always show up and say, you know, I'm okay and it's a good day today and I'm going to function. But if there's something you can take from this, know that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to say, you know, hey, by the way, I'm struggling a bit today. I need some help. I need to speak to someone and have that conversation, because there's so much help out there. When we can reach out and ask for help, there is help out there. So please don't feel like you need to go through this alone, whichever side you might be on, whether you're new to this, whether you've been in this journey for a while, whether you're the person living with a mental health condition, or maybe you're caring for someone with it. Know that there's help available on both sides, and please reach out and ask for help.
Yeah, it's a learning process. Like on your story is like it's a learning process. You might not get it right at first, like you just said, and it is okay not to be okay. So know that it's a learning process for both sides. And you know, get a hold of each other's hand and let's walk together and learn together. So yeah, thank you. Now, how do you deal with the unexpected hospital admission, change of medication, relapse of psychoses, the paranoia? Maybe could be, maybe we have a parent in here. How do they deal with in the middle of the day? They call them from school or they call them from the hospitals. Like, how do you manage that suddenly change?
Yeah. Before I step into that, I want to let viewers know that I think, because some people might not know the diagnosis we're referring to. So there could be people living with various different diagnoses, but for the purpose of this conversation, so I care for my wife, Charlie, and she navigates life with schizoaffective disorder and PTSD. So schizoaffective disorder, for those that don't know, is a combination of a mood disorder, schizophrenia, so psychosis. So she can often experience things like visual hallucinations, auditory hallucinations, like she sees things are happening, hears things are happening. And what that does is creates a world for her that for her is her reality. But for someone outside, for me, that isn't my reality, because I'm like you sitting here and I can't see the things she's seeing. I can't hear the things she's hearing. I can't feel the things she's feeling. So I'm on the outside, but I've got to understand that for her, that is her reality. It's simply a different reality. And that's another reason why the book is called A Different Reality, because of that. And so if you are somebody that is living with someone or caring for someone that lives and navigates life with psychosis, it's really important to understand that sometimes we don't always and we can't always see and understand what that person's feeling, but that doesn't mean that because it's not our reality, it isn't reality for them. And we'll go into that deeper, I know, Paula, in terms of the conversations and how we do that. But in terms of handling hospital admissions and things that come up out of the blue, I have to be very honest and say it is really challenging. I can't sit here and say, hey, it's always been easy and yeah, I've got this down pat. No, it hasn't. It really hasn't. And to be very honest, when I first started caring for my wife, I thought that if I did everything I possibly could as a carer, if I knew all of her medications, if I knew all of her triggers, if I knew the hospital plan, what we needed to do, who we needed to call, when we needed to call them, then I could essentially fix this. I could essentially take this away from her. Like, I didn't want her to go through it. I didn't want us to go through it. And I thought if I did everything I possibly could, then this would work. And then when she did relapse, when she did need to go into hospital, I would feel horrible. I would feel like I've let us both down. I feel like I let myself down, and I would feel like I've let her down, because I was like, why? Why are we back here again? We're doing everything right. Why are we here again? We shouldn't be. And it took me a long time to realize that this diagnosis and mental health is sometimes out of our control. And at times we've got to, as much as we can do in terms of self-care, medication, treatment plans, all of that, sometimes we've just got to step back and let it run its course. And know that no matter what happens, we can keep growing through it. And when we can learn from that and say, okay, it's really hard today. It's really, really hard. But if I can just make it through today, then tomorrow I can wake up knowing that I survived yesterday. Therefore, I can survive the next one. And if we can learn from each experience and take learnings from each of that into the next, I think that is a much better way of trying to deal with mental health and anything really that life throws at us. So I think that's what we are dealing with every day. And even though we've been on this journey for 11 years now, there's still curveballs that get thrown at us. There are still things that come up unexpectedly. You know, before our conversation this morning, I drove Charlie to the hospital. She's having some treatment. And just before I got on the line with you, I'd just come home. So it's not like, you know, people might be thinking, well, they've been there for 11 years. It's different. It isn't. We are still learning and we're still growing. So I want to encourage people that sometimes you might think, you know, everything needs to work out and they'll get a point where you know everything, but life will throw stuff at you. So just know that it's always a learning curve. As we go through stuff, we learn and we keep growing through more. So
yeah, the mentality, you know, the change of your mentality, which is growing through it. You're choosing to grow through it. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think we all need to adopt that in our lives, even without being in that situation. It's like learning to grow through it. It's like, okay, it's happening for me, and make the best out of it. So
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. What is the stigma around, mental health, and how will you advise us to approach a person in a mental health journey? Educate us, please.
Yeah. Sadly, there is still so much stigma associated with mental health. There's a lot of work been happening, and I think there's a lot of shifts happening. And, you know, one of the benefits of COVID, even though it's taken away so much from us, one of the benefits is it's actually lifted the lid on mental health for a lot of people. And it's put mental health now at the forefront of the conversation where it needs to be. But sadly, there is so much stigma still associated. And as someone who's been a carer for my wife, who lives with both physical and mental health disabilities, I've seen firsthand the difference in mental health versus physical. And I'll give you a very real example. Now, when Charlie had a broken leg and a broken arm, people can see that. People can see that you're in a plaster cast. So they automatically go, okay, I can associate with that. But so much about mental health is internal. You can't see it externally. And therefore you might think, well, the person's just okay. They're coping, they're working through life. And it's really important for us to understand that as simply as we won't tell somebody with, a broken leg to just simply get up and get on with it, like, hey, hop along on your crutches and, get to the next stop. The same way we've got to have more understanding and more care when speaking to somebody that might be journeying through mental health, because it's often not seen, it's often not heard, and the person can be struggling through so much more because they're unable to share that and no one else can see it. So I would say we need to approach those conversations with even more care, concern, openness, and awareness. But back to your point in terms of how do we chat with someone, I think it's approaching every conversation in the way that we would approach a conversation. It's approaching it with love, with an understanding, with an acceptance, and a term that I like to use, which is a genuine curiosity and a genuine need to help someone. Because if we can go at it at that, if we can, start by saying, hey, Paola, I can sense maybe you're not feeling okay today. Do you want to just have a conversation? Just know that I'm here, and allow that person to then share and start that conversation with us. And I'll share a couple of things that have helped me along my journey in chatting about mental health. And the first thing is to find the right place and time to have the conversation. Because sometimes if it's in a busy environment, if there are a lot of people around, or if it's in a group setting, people might not feel as comfortable having that conversation with you. So find the right time and place. Where I've often found one-on-one conversations work better. And even simple things like, if I'm having a conversation with someone that's sitting down, I sit down too. Therefore, I'm at the same eye level and I'm at the same level as the other person. I'm not talking down at them. They don't feel like they have to look up.
Oh,
It creates a different dynamic. So if the person's sitting, sit down, have a conversation. And the next thing I would say is, when the person is sharing and telling us what they're experiencing, we have a tendency to jump in and say, oh, by the way, I've experienced that too. That's been my experience. Like, this is what happened last week, and this is how I dealt with it. Therefore, you should deal with it too. And, I've been guilty of it too. Like, we've all done it. But it's really important for us in those moments to know that it's not about us. It's about the person that is sharing their journey. And all we need to do in that moment is to listen. Just actively listen. Just be present and let the person share. And the third thing I would say is, when the person shared with us how they're feeling, don't direct what needs to happen. Offer help, but don't direct the help. So rather than saying, I think you should do this, say instead, how can I help you? Is there something I can do that will help you feel better? And just by shifting that conversation, we're still offering help, but we're allowing the person to direct the help that they want. And of course, if the person is distressed, or if we need to call for professional help, then 100% do that. The person's safety is the number one priority there. But just when having conversations, if we adopt some of those practices, it allows conversations to flow. It allows us to come at it from a point where we're not always going to get it right, but we're there to have these conversations, and these meaningful and open-ended conversations.
yes. I mean, it's like, listen to understand, right?
Correct.
It's like, let's learn to listen to understand, especially if we're trying to understand someone, like approach someone with mental health. And we want to build that trust. And like you were saying, is like that foundation of trust is like with that genuine curiosity, with love, integrity, gratitude, faith. Is like you bring all your beautiful core values in the present, like be present, and is like, okay, how can I help you? And yes, and sometimes we do that. Sometimes we jump, because I'm a mom. Sometimes we jump right into what it should be done or what they should do, instead of like, okay, how does that look like for you? How do you think it would help you get over this? But yes, I think we have to, myself included, learn to ask questions and see how they see it. Even as, like I said, I've just as a very simple example as a mom and as a daughter. Like for my mom, will try to ask those questions instead of assuming what they should do. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I've been there too. When we first started, I thought I was being really helpful. So I thought, if I provide all the answers to all the questions being asked, then I'm helping. But I was wrong, and I'm okay to admit that I was wrong. And I too had to go on a learning journey to understand that we have to allow the person to direct what they want. And we're still helping, but we're helping them in a way that they want to be helped.
Yes, we're validating them, right? Whenever
Correct.
I can only speak as a mom and as a daughter, but it's like I'm learning to make them feel validated instead of like going with my opinion. So yes, thank you for educating us. It's something that I still have to work on, asking better questions. So now there are people that work, and I know you work full time, and you were still being a care provider. So how could you be the best care provider that you can as you're working full time and coming home and continuing that journey as a health provider?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like, people often talk about balance between work life and home life, and for me, it isn't really. I don't think balance best describes it, because I feel like then you've got to have one and not have one and balance out the two. But for me, it's more like a flow. I look at it more as a flow. Like, for me, I can't separate the way that my personal life is, the way that my caring role is. I cannot separate that at any point from my work life. I cannot separate that out. I cannot leave it at the door and go, okay, I'm going to leave this over here for today. And this is, like, I'm going to be this person at work, or I'm going to be this person in the community. That is part of who I am. And that comes on the journey with me every day, everywhere I go. I'm sitting and having a conversation with you right now, and I'm on the phone, and it happens. So it's about understanding and making sure that we have our priorities right for the moment where we need to be and what needs to happen. And it's important that we are able to, as carers, to give ourselves the grace to say, I can't always do everything. I cannot be everything to everyone at every time. And it's important to go, okay, I too need self care. I too need to set up some boundaries in place in order to cope and manage all the different things that are thrown at me, all the different balls that I'm juggling, all the different things, like, as you said, like a mom, like a parent, like, a sibling might be caring for someone, a friend might be caring for someone. And it's important that we understand that. But I will also share that what has really, really worked for me over the years is flexible working. And I know more and more companies now are talking about it and are moving towards that. And I feel like that is so, so important in terms of allowing flexible work practices in an organization to support the people that are working with you in that organization. Because if I didn't have flexible working, I would not have been able to do the work that I do whilst caring for the wife in the way that I want to care for my wife and in the way that I want to perform and be my best at work. So flexible working, being able to work when I can work, has been absolutely crucial for me being able to perform at the level that I do while still caring for my wife full time. So I encourage people that are working on practices like that, policies like that, to please ensure that we keep the conversation open around flexible working, that we keep pushing for flexible working hours to allow people to not have to choose between family and work.
Yes, yes. Thanks for saying that, because yeah, it makes life flow, like you're saying, much better, because you're able to meet your expectations at work, but also you're still, you know, no, you're being here for your family. So that's good. That's beautiful. That makes our heart happy. Oh, whenever we can take care of those that we love and do what we like. So how how important it is for a health care provider from home, you know, to know that there is help out there, because like you were saying at first, is like at the beginning, that sometimes you wanted to do everything right for Charlie, you
Mm.
know, and and on your book you talk about like you didn't know there was help for you as well. So how important it is, let's bring that awareness into our beautiful people out here that might be dealing with that stress, that frustration, and they don't know that there is help out there for them as well.
Yeah, yeah, great question, and really important that we talk about this because, like I said, for so long, I was a carer, but I didn't really know that I was a carer. So I thought, well, this is my partner. I'm in the role of a partner, or you could be in the role of a mom, a sibling, a parent, um, a child, even caring for a parent. And by virtue of our relationship with the person, we find ourselves in the caring role. So for a long time, I didn't really think of myself as a carer. I was like, this is my wife. So of course I'm caring for my wife. There's no question
Mhm.
about that. But it was only when I was able to go, okay, hold on. Actually, I am a carer. This is part of what I do. And when I was able to acknowledge that and accept that, then I was able to go out and ask for the help that I needed. Because as long as I said, well, I'm not a carer, this is something I do, I wasn't getting the support that I needed as a carer. And I was overwhelmed, and I was run down because I didn't have supports in place, and I was trying to do it all on my own. But when I was able to say, okay, you know what, I am actually a carer, and then reach out and ask for help and say, I don't have to do this on my own. There are things that, people can help me with. And it's really important to know that when we're caring for someone, we need to be cared for too. Like, carers must be cared for too. So we have to allow other people to care for us, to support us, so that we can better care for the people that we're caring for. And things that are available out there, and of course it's different because I know we've got people from all across the world tuning in, and it's different depending on where you are. So I would encourage you to reach out through your support networks and ask what's available. But often there is things like support networks out there. So I can say for myself in Australia here, I have a carer advocate, and that is somebody that I can call, who assists me navigating through things, whether it's through the hospital system, whether it was, during COVID when we were in lockdown and Charlie was in hospital, we couldn't visit. So I was like, how do I navigate the hospital system? How do I navigate visitation? So they're people that are in the community that are there to help and advocate for carers in those situations. So we don't have to focus on that. We can basically focus on caring and being there for our loved one. Other things such as, going to a support network. And I talk about this in the book as well, where initially when someone told me about support network, I was like, hell no, that's not for me. I don't want to go to a place and have to
I
talk
got
to
it.
people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to a place and talk to people that I don't know. Like, I've never met these people. I'm not going to talk to them. How are they going to help me? But again, I was so wrong in that. And I realize now that being in a place where people, in a room where people are experiencing what I'm experiencing, and it might not be the same journey, but it is a similar journey. There are things in common, and we can leverage and learn and share from each other. And sometimes I've had conversations in those rooms that I haven't been able to have with my closest of friends, because they don't get it. They're not caring for someone, and I can't expect them to understand what it is to be caring for someone. So find spaces and people that understand what you're going through. Find a support network, reach out and ask for help. Get, even take, like, I've done actual sessions. Like, I've gone into workshops and attended sessions where I've expanded my own knowledge of mental health, an understanding of how do you deal with anxiety, how do you deal with depression, how do you deal with someone that is experiencing voices, that is experiencing paranoia. So it's important for us in our learning journey as well that we continue to learn and grow and educate ourselves as well on what people might be experiencing, so we can better support them, but also we're more equipped in that situation. So yeah, please reach out and ask for help. There's so much help out there, even for the carer. You do not have to do this alone.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And like I said, sometimes we're like, who's going to help me? Because we feel like, oh, I got this. I got this. But there is people out there, they'll speak the same language you're going through. And you need that. You need to feel like it's okay not to be okay.
Yes.
Like, we need that. So thank you for sharing. And now this brings, you talk about dealing with grief, and loss during this time. And there's a lot of people out there, that are still have no grief, the loss of their traditional life, the grief that things change, and they might still, have the frustration. How could someone learn to deal with grief and loss? How was your like, based on your experience?
Yeah. Like, I think everyone's experience is going to be different in that journey, and I can only share from what my experience has been. And you're right. Like, when we find ourselves in this role, there is a level of grief, there is a level of loss that comes with it. There is a level of loss around, certain expectations that that we can have going into this relationship, certain expectations that we have of the future, of what things might look like. And when those aren't met, of course, there is grief, there is loss, there is frustration. There even comes up, we don't like to talk about it, but it comes up, the feeling of resentment. And these are huge feelings that come up. And it's so important that when they do come up, again, that we acknowledge it and that we speak about it. Now, I go to therapy. I'm not ashamed to say I go to therapy. I have a therapist. And I don't only see my therapist when things are at rock bottom. I see my therapist when things are going well, so I can maintain it going well. And often we can look at mental health as, hey, I'm okay for now. I'll wait till I hit rock bottom. I'll wait till I'm feeling worse. Then I'll reach out for help. Because that's traditionally and culturally sometimes how we've been brought up. Nothing's wrong. I'm fine. But I think we've got to shift our perspective and shift our understanding on realizing that we are taking a proactive approach to mental health, not a reactive approach. And when we can shift that to focusing on a proactive approach, that's when we're able to really put mental health at the forefront of that conversation. We're really able to, have a conversation on how best we can support others, but also how best we can acknowledge our own feelings that keep popping up along the way for us as well. And for me, I can say over the years, it has been a journey of acceptance. And I'd share a bit about what I mean by acceptance, because sometimes when we think of acceptance, we can think of it as, if I'm accepting something, therefore I'm giving up. Like there's no hope because I've accepted the situation and it's going to be the way it is for as long as I can see it. But I want to shift our perspective on acceptance, and I'll share with you what I mean by that. So when I look at acceptance, I look at it as an understanding of where I am right now. Almost like a GPS navigation system, right? We can't navigate to where we want to be until we understand where we're at now. In order for us to get to point B, we have to establish point A. And establishing point A is what I say and what I talk about when it comes to acceptance. It's an understanding and awareness of where we are today that then allows us to bring on and get the skills, the tools, whatever we need to then take us to point B. But as long as we keep fighting where we are right now, we'll never get the tools and the skills to help us deal with what we need to get to where we need to be. So yeah, I say that when those feelings come up, acknowledge it, talk about it, seek help, and then find the tools and ways to help you deal with what you need to, so you can grow through that experience to the next.
Yes, thank you. And here comes to, you were talking about self-care. This is part of your self-care, because you have to build that muscle. Going to therapy often is like you're working through your self-care. To me, that's self-care. I don't know if it's the same to you, but to me, it's like you're caring for building that muscle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Whenever things go out of place, then you have been working already the muscle of how to respond to the different scenarios that approach you. So yes, thank you for sharing that. What other ways of self-care would you recommend our beautiful audience right now that might be, struggling with this new change in their life, and they just want a way of, like to breathe and continue to move on. They need that strength. But before they gain that strength, sometimes we have to say it's okay that I'm not okay, and give yourself either 5 hours, one day, 2 days to just cry it out, like do what you have to do. Maybe you have to go for a run to honor that frustration, to honor that anger, the uncertainty, in order for you to continue to be better, to gain the strategies and tools to continue to move forward.
Yeah, look, I think at the moment, the way it's going, I think self-care has almost become like this buzzword, right? And self-care, sometimes people think is a luxury. Self-care is not a luxury, it is a priority. Self-care is not something we do when we have the time to do it. Self-care is something that we set out time to do. And we've got to shift that for us in order to get self-care right. Because, I've done it myself, and hey, guilty as charged. I always say I'll take care of myself when I get the time to do that. I used to say that. But we have to make time to take care of ourselves so we can better care for other people. And self-care is essential. And for anyone listening today, I'll ask you, if you've got a priority list, a list of things to do, where do you feature on that list? Are you at the bottom? Are you at the middle? Or are you at the top? Because in order for that list to get done, in order for us to function in any way in life, self-care is number one, right on the top. And I'm still on a journey. I do have to admit, I don't always do it right, but I'm on a journey of learning and getting better at doing self-care. And one of the things that have helped me, that actually somebody shared with me at a support group that I was in, was to make a list of the things that we can do for self-care. And this comes back to saying, I don't have the time. So I know I've been in conversations with people and I'll be like, take some time out. You really need to take it out. They'll be like, I don't have the time to do that, Nerissa. I'm like, okay. So if someone's listening today, I'd say this. Make a list of the things that you can do for self-care, whether it is things you can do in a minute, in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and then go on. So that you've got a list of things that you can do when you need to do something, rather than going, oh, I need to take a break. I've only got 5 minutes. What do I do? And they don't have to be big things. They can be simple things like, if you've got a minute, just take time out and just breathe. Just breathe for a minute. It can be simple things like putting on a song. I do this a lot because I'm often in a lot of meetings. I go, like I say, from having to drive Charlie to a hospital, and then I'm on a Zoom session. This morning I was sitting outside the hospital on a Zoom call. So there's things that happen where I need to build in self-care. And often things that I do is I'll put on a song. I just put on music that shifts my energy, that allows me to just get up and move my body and allows me to then switch into the zone I need to be in. Sometimes I'll leave the space that I'm in, whether it's my studio here, or if I'm, when I used to be at work, I'll say, I've got to go out and I'll go for a walk or go to a different space. So find whatever it is that puts joy back into your life, whether it's going for a walk, reading a book, listening to music, cooking a meal, talking to a friend, whatever that might be. Find what brings joy into your life, and then find multiple ways to put that into your day and schedule it in. And then make a list of things that you can do in the time that you have. So the next time that you think that you need to take a break, you don't have to think about what you need to do. You've got a list. You just pick one and go for it.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and learn to associate, like this is self-care. It could be one song like you're talking about. It could be breathing and exercises, but learn to associate that what you're doing is self-care. So thank you so much. On the book, you guys share a story about, or a technique called sensory box. I'm very curious. Could you share with our audience, maybe someone can benefit from a sensory box?
Yeah. Thank you for picking that up. But a sensory box is like, because I mentioned, Charlie has auditory visual hallucinations, which sometimes can take her away from reality and move her into her own reality, the different reality. And what a sensory box does is allows you to stay connected and grounded in the moment. And it could be made up of multiple different things. Like when we started out our sensory box, it was just a glass jar and we would put things into that glass jar. It's now a box. So start wherever you want. It might just even be an envelope, but it's putting things in there that allow you to stay connected and grounded in the present moment. And it could be different things. It could be things that play on the senses. So it could be something that has a different kind of texture. So a hard rock or a soft piece of material. It could be things that stimulate your sound and smell. So, if a particular smell helps you feel comforting, then put something that gives you that smell in it. It could be something like, if it is, music, a sound, then capture maybe a song on your phone and put it in there. We've got different things in there. It could be notes from friends and family at a time when you've been struggling that have helped you. We put notes in there. So different things, little trinkets, little objects that help you feel connected to people, grounded in the moment, and can bring you back to where you need to be.
Awesome. Thank you. I just thought I was like, this is amazing. Someone might need to hear about this sensory box. It could be beneficial. So thanks for sharing. This is just something pop up to me. Like a while ago, it was like, you on the book, you continue to mention that suicidal conversations are normal. And here's taboo. Here we'll go back to like, but how do we start that? And we don't have a lot of time. We only have about 4 minutes. What could be like one or two phrases you could share with us? Like, if there is mental health problems at home, how can we make that conversation traditional?
Yeah. I think what you're talking about is normalizing the conversation. And for so long, things like suicide, things like mental health have been taboo, and we don't often speak about it. But I think conversations such as this, and more conversations that we have with people around mental health, will shift the dynamics of that and make it a normal conversation. Like, now it's not a problem to have a conversation when someone breaks a leg. If your child breaks a leg, you're like, oh, it's hurting for you. How can I help you? Do you need a bandage? Do you need a splint? Do you need a plaster? Do we need to see it? Like, there's a thought process around it, and we need to create that same thought process around mental health. So let's normalize the conversation by having more conversations. And feel free to reach out to me to speak more about this. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to come and chat to your organization. I'm happy to chat one-on-one. But yeah, let's keep this conversation going.
Thank you. Where can we find you? Please share with us. Where can we find you?
You can find me on all platforms: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Nerissa Trindade. My website is www.nerissatrindade.com. And reach out to me. Feel free to connect. I come and speak to people as well on mental health, awareness, well-being, and self-care. So please feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, do you have a final message for our beautiful audience today?
Yeah, I want to let people know that there is always hope. And I break the acronym down as HOPE, which is hold on, possibilities exist. Hold on, possibilities exist. So whenever you get to that moment where you think there is no way out, there is always a way out. There is someone that you can reach out to, someone you can have a conversation with. Please know that it is okay to not be okay. It's okay to reach out and ask for help. There is loads of help available. So please reach out. You don't have to do this alone, and know that there is always hope.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here today. And for anyone that's curious about, what we're talking about, is a book that Nerissa and her wife wrote. Yes. It's called A Different Reality. And it's about growing through the journey of mental health. So I chose to read it because I know Nerissa, and I learned from it. It's like, I'm not going through this journey, but it helped me so much. It helped me to understand that it's okay not to be okay at times. It's like, oh, yes, that's right. So you're going to gain a lot of tools and strategies that you can use in your everyday life. So thank you so much, Nerissa, for your time, for your wisdom, for sticking, with us with these technical issues today. So thank you so much. I hope you all found a word, a phrase that can inspire you to, make your life a little bit brighter. And if you want to watch the replay for this interview, it's going to be on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Paola Guthrie. Thank you all so much for being here. And this show can also, you're so welcome. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for all news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thank you all so much, and blessings to you.